Salutations!
Welcome to the Film Mages Podcast, where the popcorn is our ammunition, the couch is our foxhole, and the cinema is a place of worship.
Now let me see your war face. Ah!
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone. We're
another
back.
week, another episode.
That's every week we do it.
I know.
We haven't missed a week
We're
yet.
consistent.
Yeah.
We're really consistent.
We're like the U.S. Postal Service.
So there's something we should probably mention in this episode.
So are we going to mention it right away?
I think we should mention it right
We're
away.
going to get on it right
I think we should.
We have another special guest. We have another special guest.
We do.
Yeah. First time guest,
is that?
long time family member.
Who is that? You. This is live, and you are on the air.
I was going to say, and long-time listener, because I've listened to every episode of this show, so...
Dang,
Wow.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you
just
for your
goes
support.
to show if you listen to every episode and are related to one of the hosts, you can maybe get on as a
Hell
guest.
yeah.
That's right.
Nepo baby.
Nepo baby.
Edwin Harris. Hello, Edwin. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Zach?
I'm doing good.
Harris?
My name's Zach, and this is the Film Majors. Hi. Who's everybody else?
Hi, I'm Mick. Hello.
Hi, I'm Alexis.
And yeah, we're back. We're continuing our Academy
continuing
Darlings
it, yeah.
month.
Yes,
and,
we are.
Yeah.
Things are good. Great, Zach. You're really taking it
Yeah,
away.
man.
You know, I just really quickly, I want to say we're not sponsored by Habit Burger, but I gotta say, I'm so disappointed that they don't have a veggie option, and they finally do. They have the Impossible Burger. Now, here's a hot take, and I want to kind of float this amongst the room. I think Habit Burger is better than In-N-Out.
Is this
Okay.
an LA thing?
Kind of.
Yeah,
Zach, what
it's
do you
for
think?
sure a California thing. No, I'm still going to go with In-N-Out.
Really?
Yeah.
The fries are bad.
I don't really hate the fries. Also, I'm not a big fry guy.
You're not a fry guy?
No.
Oh, I'm a bean boy, and you can put beans in patties now.
I fucking hate
They
you.
putting beans in patties.
Please stop bringing up beans.
What an innovative time we live in.
Oh my god.
So how are we all doing? I think we should really like step in it, right? We should step right into it.
Yeah, Edwin, what's going on?
What's going on? I get to.
There it is.
And that's where you play the...
I'm going to play the music. The music will have
The music is
it
playing
has been played.
right
I'm
now.
kind of disappointed you didn't do the scream that scares me at the start of every episode before I came in.
Is that something you do?
No, in the intro.
Yeah, in the intro, there's always
yeah.
a yell that plays.
We don't
It's
have
very
a play in. That's all in
alarming.
post.
Yeah, no, that,
No,
that's,
I'm aware. But
that scream is Mr. Matthew Modine.
That's right.
That's the scream from Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal
which
Jacket.
we don't have the rights to.
No, we don't, but we don't care.
Yeah.
We use it anyways. We haven't gotten any lawsuits yet.
Yeah.
Every time my mom hears that when she listens to an episode, she's like, "You guys are so crazy."
That's
I'm just
about
like,
right.
okay, I guess.
That's about right.
How's Dolores doing? I've been
Yeah.
wanting to meet
Yeah,
Dolores.
how's her arm?
She's doing much better. So instead of having, there's
There it is.
There it is.
sorry.
Right on cue.
there's Precious.
Instead of having, yes, sweet, precious. Instead of having a full arm like cast splint thing, she has just like a regular, just like kind of brace on now. So
Hell yeah.
much better. She starts physical therapy tomorrow, so we're gonna be doing that, and I will be limping behind her.
I was going to say, are you both going to
because
physical therapy?
No, but like 2 days ago, I twisted my ankle, and yesterday it was swollen all to hell.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, no. That
So-
sucks. How did it happen? What happened?
Oh, I tripped going up the curb, and I think I
yikes.
fell on my knees, twisted my ankle,
That
and
sucks.
so rice. If anybody didn't know, rice is what you're supposed to do in this kind of situation, which is
Did you say rice?
I think it's rest, ice, compression, and elevation.
Oh, ice.
This is,
I thought she said
Rice.
rice.
I love that we're...
Rice.
you're
Yes,
saying
rice.
rice.
Yeah, rice
You
is
warm it up?
it's an acronym. Wow, we're an
an
edutainment
acronym.
I see.
podcast.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's education.
Yeah, the more me and my family hurt each other, the more educational this podcast is in
This
the
is
medical
great.
sense.
Yeah, Alexis, you've provided medical advice on the last two
Yeah.
episodes.
I can't wait for the next episode.
Yeah, it honestly makes me worried for your family.
Yeah. Please be careful.
Yeah, take
sorry
care of
to-
Mitchie.
We're sorry to hear you got injured. That's no good.
But
It's all
I've got a
good.
follow-up
I look pretty
question.
ridiculous. It's fun.
I've got a follow-up question. And let's float it to our guest slash relative. Edwin, have you been watching any movies lately?
Have I been watching any movies lately? Yes, I have.
What you been watching?
I was like,
let's
as if,
see.
swear to God, if you haven't.
Big problem for us.
Yikes.
Well, I think I saw a movie that you also saw in theaters recently, which was Scream 6. That's the last thing I saw in theaters, but I also watched Manhunter.
Hell yeah.
Recently rewatched
Manhunter?
that, and another one somewhat relevant to the topic of today's podcast is Myra Breckenridge. Not sure how much that's like a commonly known name to the audience, but
I had never heard of it before you mentioned it to me.
I've never heard of it.
if you
What is it?
if you like both Pink Flamingos and like Russ Meyer movies, like Faster Pussycat Kill kind of stuff.
That's playing
imagine if
theaters right now in LA.
oh, awesome! I would love
That's
to see
playing
that.
at the theater that
is
I
why-
saw
yeah.
our big topic film today.
It's like the only thing I'm jealous about you guys living in LA about. But,
Yeah, I know it is pretty cool.
yeah, so it's, I don't know, like a camp classic, I guess. Not necessarily like fully just a recommend to a general audience due to some interesting subject matter, but I had fun with it. I don't know.
Nice. Yeah. Well, Scream 6, we all saw it.
Yeah, Alexis, you saw it too, right?
I did go see it, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
What are our feelings, Edwin? What did you think of Scream 6?
You know, I really haven't like loved a Scream movie since Scream 1996. So it was like fine for me, but I did enjoy the opening scene a lot.
The opening scene rules.
Yeah, I really like that.
Little spoiler: there's a bit of set dressing in the first scene of the film. A poster for a certain podcast, not our podcast, regrettably. But
Let's not get too. I got excited there for a
yeah,
second.
you guys didn't notice?
Did you see the film agent's poster on set?
You guys didn't see our three faces in the background? They
I
didn't
was
even
more
ask us.
fixated on the t-shirt.
See,
The Four Flies on Grey Velvet t-shirt.
Yeah.
interesting, because I was clued into the last podcast on the left poster in the background, because it's the same design that I bought you as a Christmas present on a T-shirt.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think honestly, this might be surprising, but out of all of the Scream sequels, this one actually might be my favorite Scream 6.
Wow, ringing endorsement.
Yeah, it's know, it's okay. I didn't dislike it. I didn't dislike it at all. I still maintain. I've always said that there isn't a single bad Scream film, like
Except
a
for
solidly bad movie, and
last
I'm
one.
relieved to say that this one doesn't change that. I think that's still. I think they all have some merit, but yeah, the first half of the movie I enjoyed more than the second half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. In my review, I think I said of all the Scream movies, this was one of them.
This is definitely one of them. Yeah. Alexis, I gotta say you're right on the money.
Yeah, right? No, I kind of agree with Mick, though. It's like, I don't know, because I grew up watching those movies so often. And I mean, obviously, I agree. Like, the first one's the best. I think that's
I don't think anyone's
not
arguing.
contestable, you know? But I feel that there is just something meritable. Like, there's something for me to personally enjoy in, like, each of the movies for, like, different reasons, whether it's, like, a different character or, like, the setting or something like that. I think that the humor is a little too... Oh, my God.
That's Mitchie agreeing.
This is the sound design for the end of the film we just watched.
This is our diegetic sound.
Yeah, it's increasing the tension.
Hey, good
As
vocab
Alexis
word.
is stopped in her home.
I put her outside before we began. I don't know how she got back in.
Sad.
That's spooky.
Yeah, I feel like we're all on a similar page with Scream 6.
Yeah.
I definitely found that I think this had some of the best horror sequences since
agree. Really good horror
the
stuff.
start of the franchise. Like, I really loved the sequence in the bodega that's been in a lot of the trailers. I didn't love the third act,
Same.
but yeah, I feel like the meta humor worked maybe the least in this one out of any of the movies, and I feel like if we're not gonna stop making Scream movies, which I think we could totally do, if we're gonna make another one, I think the most subversive thing the Scream franchise could do is make just like a straightforward slasher movie.
Which I support that.
Because I think that's kind of the stuff that's working better anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like the Radio Silence guys to make something that's not a Scream movie again, because I really loved Ready or Not.
Again, what I really liked about the beginning, but also kind of unsettling a little bit, is like these two. Again, I'm going to spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Scream 6, you should probably just mute us. But the two killers, the two college film students, have an apartment that look really similar to ours, with just these film posters of horror movies. And I was like, God, I love their apartment. Fuck.
This is what
And I'm kind of like, God damn it, I'm part of the problem. I feel seen. And
this is what I said to
it,
Zach when I saw it before he did it. I was like, okay, listen, you got to watch it at the beginning. It'll be a bit of a call out for like you and me.
You got posters and stuff too. So,
I know, but I did like in the beginning also. I like that they're like Giallo fanboys, right? So they're like, you know, they're into the 70s movies, and the beginning is a little bit, I thought, of an homage to something like A Bay of Blood, the Bava movie, where it starts with a fake out, right? Where you have the initial murder, and then the murderer gets murdered.
Yeah, that was really great.
I
also love that actor,
That
too.
is my favorite bit of Bay of Blood. I really love the opening of that movie.
I love that movie, and I love the opening. So
we are all Mario Bava fans on this show.
Nice.
Well, I feel that we're Lorenzo Bava fans.
Lorenzo Bava?
Director of Demons, I believe. Lamberto. Sorry, Lamberto Bava.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Lorenzo. That's the name of the AD I'm working with. Lorenzo. Oh, by the way, I want to just address something really quick. Edwin, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I got the definition of Giallo wrong on the last episode. And we're all here. We're all friends. I just want to set the record straight. Because I'm here to learn, just like our listeners. Well, maybe they're not here to learn. But anyways, so what is actually Giallo?
Oh, man. You know, listen, first of all, it's not just a call out at you. I also brought this up when Zach described something as a Giallo like several episodes ago, and I was like, that's not a Giallo movie. Just because it's an Italian horror movie that was made during the time when Gialli were being made doesn't mean that it's a Giallo movie.
Bancho.
Yeah, I do think that I'm sorry, Zach, passed this nitpicking onto you, because I feel like arguing about the definition of Giallo and what counts and what doesn't is a very like tedious character trait of horror fans.
I'm a tedious sort of guy.
And you're in the right place for it.
Okay.
We call this the House of Tedium.
Yeah. So I would say like largely the broad strokes were correct. The one detail that I took issue with was where the name comes from. It is true that Giallo means yellow in Italian, right? But it came from the covers of mystery novels, pulp mystery novels.
Okay,
that came out that preceded the film movement. But yeah, I think you got a lot of the major features,
that was from
right?
The 20s, right?
Yeah, 1920s, right?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it would have had to be. Yeah, before
Regardless,
I want to blame Eli Roth. Yeah, because I heard that definition from him, and he was like, "Yeah, it's the yellow that's on the posters from." That's not what he sounds like, but anyways, it's the yellow. That's my Eli Roth impression.
Well, you were also saying you're going to take Eli Roth's word that "dress to kill" is like. Not as like transphobic as it seems. Like the day I listened to Eli Roth about like what?
Wait, Zach, did you tell Edwin about that?
I was on the podcast.
You talked about it on the last episode.
You told me about it when you said it into a microphone.
That's right. I can't keep track.
That is forever on the internet.
I loved how Avery and Roth were like, no, like I really think they were trying to say something about gender, and Tarantino was like, no, I really think you're overlooking this. This is just a slasher film with some weird parts.
You're giving Brian De Palma too much credit.
Which, for the record, I think people do in general. The more De Palma that's right, I'm saying it. The more De Palma I watch, the more I don't think I'm really into him. I really like Mission Impossible. But I don't know. I already mentioned this, but I watched Dress to Kill. I watched Blowout, and I don't know.
So I'd like to pivot a little bit.
To what?
To something that has kind of been the controlling theme for this entire month that we didn't talk about yet.
What?
And that's that the Oscars happened.
They did?
Yeah, we haven't
they did.
remotely discussed the 2023 Oscars, and I feel like we should just
touch on it
briefly.
I think the original idea was to do like a mini episode to address the Oscars, but I mean, we can just, do a quick little dilly bopper here.
Yeah, it's good, but it is good we didn't do that because, again, while the Oscars were happening, our little group chat was just nothing but thirsting for Adam Driver gifts.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
No, I didn't. I thought we were just going to do like a recap afterwards or something, not during. I do not want to do like something during.
Yeah,
sounds terrible.
I would have though, but it just would have been Adam Driver love.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say. I think it was a good crop of nominees. Obviously, I'm not quite as hot on Everything Everywhere All at Once as you guys, but of the top 3 winning movies, that's by far the one I like the most. I watched All Quiet on the Western Front this week.
Yeah, which I liked more than you, quite a bit.
Yeah,
but I also agree with you. Like, I think that got too much love. From the Academy. Like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm gonna freak out a little bit. Giving All Quiet on the Western Front best score? Are we serious? Like, guys.
Oh, yeah. I was a little tickled off by the didn't they go for it? They got it for production design.
Yeah, production design. It's just
and
mud.
I was like,
yeah, seriously.
I can't believe I'm gonna say this. I can't believe I'm gonna say this on mic. But where the fuck was Elvis in that?
Yeah, no, for real.
That's what I was saying.
Like, as someone who is
of everything, production design. Come on.
Yeah, as someone
Catherine
who's
Martin got
on the
done dirty.
record for not liking Elvis, that is like one of the 2 categories that I feel like I would not object if you gave that to Elvis.
I had a weird moment when Brendan Fraser won because I was like, okay, Brendan Fraser, Austin Butler, Brendan Fraser, Austin Butler, and then Brendan Fraser won. I was like, I wanted Austin Butler because I couldn't decide in the moment. Like, but then as soon as I got one of the results, I realized which one I think my heart was closer to. But you know what? Congratulations to Brendan Fraser. That was a damn good performance.
It's a bad movie and I hate it. I was incensed that The Whale was given any awards because I feel, for me, nothing works in that movie. Brendan Fraser is the closest thing to working. But yeah, I'm America's #1 whale hater, and
not the animal, the movie.
Things Captain Ahab
we
would
love
say.
the whales.
Yeah,
save our oceans.
If we were gonna award Payakan the outcast from Avatar: The Way of Water, we could have that conversation.
See, that's what I thought they meant when Whale won.
Yeah,
the whale from Avatar: Way of
the
Water.
best Tulkun, which that I would agree with. But yeah, I don't know. I was happy to see Ki Hoi Kwan win. Thought he was great in that movie.
Great speech. I loved how he addressed his kid, where he was like, "Hey, don't compare yourself to this. This is not normal.
Yeah.
This is not. Don't think for a second that this is a normal thing because it isn't. So you keep doing your thing." I thought that was a nice little shout out he did to his kid. I cried when he was like, "My mom's watching this on TV." But I think my favorite win by far was Women Talking for Best Adapted Screenplay, because not only was that hands down one of my favorite movies of the year, but it also surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. I did that thing that Michael Jordan did when he won the game, and I leapt up in the living room and I was just like waving my hand. I was really happy about that.
And I've always referred to you as the Michael Jordan of podcasters.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah. That's the 3rd time I've gotten that. Edwin, what did you think?
I gotta preface this. I was not a film major. I'm not a film industry connected person. I am a graduate student in horticulture and entomology. So I was doing graduate student stuff and didn't watch the Oscars, didn't follow it, didn't care I didn't see a lot of the movies that came out. I have my tastes, and they are not the Academy's tastes usually. So
that's completely valid.
Yeah.
I was a little sad that I did see Banshees of Inisherin and like that movie a lot this year, and was a little sad that it didn't get any love. But other than that, I don't know. I was also surprised Elvis didn't get some. That's another one of the movies I did see, and yeah.
Edwin, what were your feelings on Elvis?
I didn't like it as much as Moulin Rouge. I'm not a Baz Luhrmann hater like Zach is, but I was surprised by the strength of you two other co-hosts' feelings about Baz Luhrmann and how you were like adamantly like I couldn't date someone who who isn't a Baz head. It's like wow, okay,
Yeah.
I don't think that I okay. You know what? I'm gonna rescind that previous statement. I think I couldn't date someone who like hates him.
okay.
I think that's what I'm gonna have to say. Like if they don't love it, I'm like that's okay. It can be my thing. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I'd agree with that. That's fair.
We're getting
Yeah,
normaler.
I think just like I don't need to get into it.
Just for saying
If you want to hear me get really deep into it, you can listen to the fucking episode on Elvis again.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I watched Australia last year for the first time, and I was kind of like, yeah. I kind of like it. I had a good time.
To retell a story that I've told on this podcast before, I watched Australia when I was young with Edwin and our mother. After
I didn't make it through.
I thought that for the longest time, I've thought that Australia is 3 hours long because the way I remember it, after the first hour, our mother left. After the second hour, Edwin left, and I was the only person who finished the movie. Because I thought that there was like an additional hour, but I think that movie's only like 2:20.
Wow, so I almost made it then. I almost made it through.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I realize that Baz Luhrmann, I think, is one of the few filmmakers where I've seen everything they've made. Like
That's
I
so
have seen
fucked
all
up.
of Baz Luhrmann's filmography, and I think that helps because he hasn't made that many films. I don't know what he has, like eight or nine, maybe around there.
Yeah,
but no,
Not
it's
9. Yeah.
not 9. Okay, so yeah, I don't know what it is, but I know it ain't 9.
I think the only filmmaker I've seen all the way through is Sam Raimi. I think
That's right, because you haven't seen Death Proof yet, so you haven't seen all of Tarantino yet.
No.
I haven't seen all of Sam Raimi.
Yeah, I finished Sam Raimi's filmography last year when I had COVID. The one other Oscar movie I'd like to mention is Triangle of Sadness, which I watched for the first time.
yeah.
Me too. I watched that
too.
in Tar recently as well.
Oh, nice.
Another
Oh,
one that
yeah.
got no love.
Yeah,
that I thought was great.
Unbelievable.
So first of all, what did we... Alexis, have you seen Triangle of Sadness?
No, that was the only one of the Best Picture nominees that I didn't end up going to go see.
Okay. Well,
I don't know. Like I'm not mad about it, to be honest.
It's very funny.
Yeah, that was the thing. I'm right there with Alexis, where I wasn't really planning on watching it. I only watched it because you put it on. And for some reason, there was something around the buzz of that film that just really made me not only not excited to see it, but actually disinterested. I don't know. I just didn't want to watch Triangle of Sadness. And then I finally did. Oh, man, I really liked it. Like, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was genuinely hilarious. Now, it was gross. Really gross. Like,
Nasty.
to the point where I actually kind of started to not feel good. But no, I was actually kind of taken aback by how much I got from that film. Mostly the second half. I enjoyed the second half more than the first half. Edwin, what did you think of Triangle of Sadness?
Similarly, I was scared off from watching it. I guess just from, I don't know, things I heard from critics or whatever. And also from the runtime, it's a little long.
Yeah.
But I thought it was pretty funny. I really liked Woody Harrelson's character and his philosophical debate with the capitalist Russian oligarch.
The Russian oligarch? That was a great, weird friendship.
Yes, I like that interaction a lot. Thought it was
I
very
love
funny.
their podcast.
Yes, the podcast you have to listen to as you're shitting yourself to death on a boat. Love it.
God, if we could get our podcast on a boat where people are shitting themselves to death,
And we're just completely hammered.
we'd be popping off.
Yeah,
That
capital
was
audience.
so
Genius.
hilarious. I love that I love it where the Russian oligarch is like, Mayday, Mayday, this boat is going down. And then Woody Harrelson goes on the mic going, oh, sorry, we can't do this, we can't. The boat is fine, it's not going down. But then continues with them just going nuts on the microphone. And then also, not really spoiler alert, but I love so much how the Russian oligarch ends up looking like
Karl Marx.
He looks like Karl Marx on the island. I got so much happiness from that. That was chef's kiss to that.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah, I have several friends who are certified Triangle of Sadness haters, and I'm going to say, go fuck yourselves. You're wrong. That was a good movie.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm coming after you guys. You know who you are. You my lifelong friends. Fuck you. Anything else going on?
You sounded like Charlie Day just then.
You mean other movies?
Yeah. I seen anything?
I watched.
I don't think so.
I watched that Hulu movie Boston Strangler with Keira Knightley.
Ooh, is that good? I want to see that.
I think it's okay.
Okay.
I know that there's a movie from like 1968 with Tony Curtis and Henry Fonda that is also on the Boston Strangler, which, if we're talking about Nepo babies, you got the father of two very, very famous Nepo babies, one who just won an Oscar. So
That's right.
yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis, her dad's Tony Curtis, and Henry Fonda, his daughter's Jane Fonda, 80 for Brady.
Oh my god. We cannot do 80 for Brady discourse again. We cannot do it.
I enjoy those through lines there. Tony Curtis, Jamie Lee Curtis, Henry Fonda, Jane Fonda. Those are good. It's good, strong families, good actors.
Yeah. So, I mean, I liked the movie. I saw it with my sister, like while I was, incapacitated last night, resting my fucking ankle.
Resting your weary bones.
I think a lot of people, like when I was reading some reviews afterwards, were kind of like comparing it to like it's a much more boring Zodiac because it is a newspaper movie because it's not it's about the Boston Strangler, but it's about these two women who are in charge of reporting on this. And it's, back in like 1963. So of course, they're dealing with some, sexism and shit. And,
sure. Do you agree?
And in general, I don't know if you've ever heard the story of the Boston Strangler, but there's a bunch of shit going on. And, the police were really dropping the ball on that.
Wow, what a shock.
So,
wait, Alexis, do you agree that it's a more boring Zodiac?
Well, I've never actually watched Zodiac all the way through, so because I found it boring, so
yeah.
So I don't know.
Sorry.
This will be the last episode of the podcast.
Sometimes I have a hard time keeping focus on a movie within like. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Either way, I did not finish it. I think I got like 20 minutes in and then I paused it and then I didn't come back to it. And that was like years ago. I really should try it again because, I do also love a newspaper movie. So.
For listeners of the podcast, Zodiac is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, I don't love Zodiac the way Zach does, but I will say you should give it a chance.
I don't know who loves Zodiac the way Zach does. But
that's true.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, he really loves it.
I love Zodiac because it is so much fun. It is better than getting your rocks off with a girl. Sorry.
It is very long, though.
That's from
it's
one
a
of
long
the Zodiac
film.
letters.
Considering that you guys are talking about how your room looks like the serial killers from the cold open of like Scream 6, and then you be making comments like watching Zodiac is better than getting your rocks off.
Quoting the Zodiac letters, it's not calming you down.
Not a good look.
I think we can get out of what's going on. No?
Sure.
No, we still got stuff going? We can keep going.
I rewatched all the fucking new Star Wars movies with my nephew so I could look at Adam Driver again. And then I actually got my sister. Yeah, I got my sister to watch the original Star Wars movie. She's not a sci-fi girl at all, and I got her to watch this movie because I made her watch the last one with me and Jax, and she was like, "These robots are so cute," and I was like, "Oh, if you like the robots, I got something for you."
Adam Driver.
No, I was like, we gotta watch the original one. I think you'll think they're funny. So she did. Nice. She actually enjoyed it. So I'm gonna dupe her into watching the rest of them with me.
Nice. Also, on topic, I think the second episode of Mandalorian Season 3 is much better than the first. I'm glad I'm sticking with it, and that's all I'm going to say.
And I will remain being done with Star Wars. Alrighty, let's hop out of what's going on.
God, you just hate fun, don't you?
Yeah. Hello, Noah.
I don't know why I just always forget to change that in the settings.
It was really
Who's
funny just
Noah?
now when you were calling. Zach was like, "Wait, who's Noah?" Like not wanting to open it. I'm like, just do it. That's your nephew.
So for reference, Alexis's name on Zoom pops up as Noah.
So now
I think it's
going
because
forward.
my nephew was using my Zoom account for school or something. I don't even remember, but he had it changed. I never remembered to change it back, and it's been like 2 years. So,
So I'd like all of the listeners to know that the cursed ice cream truck, after not making an appearance
It's
for
back.
like over 20 episodes, it's now made an appearance on the last 2.
Yeah.
It's stalking our streets and it's getting closer.
Yeah.
So I'd like to introduce our big topic for today, which I posed as coolest Oscar wins, which are wins that we love or think were unconventional or unexpected in a good way. And I was thinking, I don't know, maybe we go in alphabetical order. Alexis?
I actually have nothing for this. I actually don't really watch the Oscars that
I
often.
know.
Like,
I'm so happy she said that because I was like, God, I have nothing
You
either.
don't have anything?
yeah,
No,
I think the only thing was that like when Parasite won in
That
2019,
would
I
be
think
my
I
answer.
cried.
Yeah.
I cried because I was just really excited that like an international movie got acclaim like at the Academy, and I love his movies. So
Yeah.
and I mean like the actors in it too. I just love a bunch of their movies too. So that one was in particular just like wow, love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. So we do have something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that Spirited Away. I guess that's it. That's about
There we
it.
go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Mick, you're saying you've
I
got
thought
nothing?
you said you were doing alphabetical order.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, well, Mick just said he had nothing.
Maybe he'll think of
before
something in the next few minutes. Who knows?
All right.
There's
Edwin,
still time.
You got stuff?
Yeah, because I was told to prepare for this. One which has been referenced on this podcast before that I would like to bring up is Aiko Ishioka's 1992 win as costume designer for Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh yeah.
Gang,
Good
gang.
choice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously her designs in that are incredibly iconic. She's a wonderful artist. It came up on that episode as well that she is responsible for the costume design in The Cell, which I think is a very underrated horror movie from the 90s. So yeah, that is a cool one to me.
I haven't seen that yet.
The Cell.
The Cell rules.
Yeah. And the
Alexis, you're nodding.
costumes.
Have you seen it?
Alexis, have you seen
the
The Cell?
You were nodding.
Okay.
Yeah, do you like it?
Yeah, but I think just the like sorry, what are we doing?
Wait, what did you say?
Sorry, we were just asking if you liked The Cell.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen it in a really long time, but
It's got
Sorry,
two of
Ed.
Hollywood's best Vinces.
It does.
Sorry, Edwin, take it away.
That's okay. I was just going to say, in terms of the costumes, though, like, you can see the through line, right, where it's that very characteristic kind of like musculature looking armor makes another appearance in The Cell. There's some really amazing like collars on the costumes that are, yeah, just really stunning costume design in both of those movies. But she won for Bram Stoker's Dracula. And another one that I want to shout out is 1979 win for Best Visual Effects for Alien.
Ooh,
Good
yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
Damn good choice.
Man, yeah, those H.R. Geiger designs
Mm-hmm.
rule.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, our roommate keeps bringing up Species to us,
Oh God.
which is another movie that H.R. Geiger did the designs for.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's
Wow.
nowhere near as good as Alien.
Oh.
Like, I don't want to watch it now. I've never gotten around to it, but
Yeah.
I think I caught like half of Species at like midnight at a Holiday Inn a few years ago.
it sounds like the right way
That
to watch
sounds like
it.
the perfect
Yeah.
setup.
Yeah,
That's how you do
absolutely.
it.
100%.
Loki, that is the environment to experience Species in. Yeah, well, those are good picks. Both great movies. Go back and listen to our Dracula episode. I've got a list. I've got a big long list.
Oh,
and
surprise. Can I do one more before you launch into your list then?
You got another one. Let's
1972, another movie that has come up multiple times on this podcast. Cabaret wins for Liza Minnelli for Best Actress and Joel Grey for Best Supporting. It did not win Best Picture, but I think it got some other awards for music.
You know what won Best Picture that year?
No.
72.
The Godfather.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's, I mean, good year.
Interestingly, Bob Fosse wins Best Director over Coppola, I believe. Yeah, which, honestly, love Bob Fosse as a director. All That Jazz is also fucking incredible.
I gotta watch both of those.
Yeah.
I still gotta watch it.
Great movies. Great musicals.
Yeah, even if you're a musical hater.
Yeah, Mick.
Yeah.
Let's just say it.
I feel you. No, I am excited to see those. I am.
So I've got a few. One is Ruth Gordon wins
I was going to mention this one.
Best Supporting Actress for Rosemary's Baby.
Yes.
Yes, she's the neighbor who, spoiler alert, is a Satanist.
Yeah, Minnie.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that was a cool win. The Best Actress winner the year before the movie we're talking about is Kathy Bates in Misery, which is, those would have been a couple of great years to be a horror fan.
That's a great film.
To see some respect thrown on the genre's name.
Yeah.
I wanted to shout out Ex Machina for Best Visual Effects. I thought that was kind of a cool, unexpected win. I feel like that award usually goes to...
Was that A24's first Oscar?
It might have been.
Huh.
Or... Yeah, I think it was.
That's cool. Well deserved there, because, that looks spectacular.
Yeah, for a very low-budget movie.
Yeah.
I feel like that award usually goes to big blockbusters, so I thought that was a cool win. Into the Spider-Verse for Best Animated Feature, kind of breaking a long series of Disney Pixar wins. Alexis, I feel like you've brought up Into the Spider-Verse on this podcast before.
It's a 5-star motherfucking movie in my eyes. I love that movie. I'm so excited for Across the Spider-Verse to come out.
Cannot wait. Yeah, I'm so
Cannot
fucking with you.
wait.
Yeah, that movie. Go ahead. Sorry.
Before you finish your list and do the segue, I have one thing to say.
Please.
So, no, you can finish your list. Are you done
It's
with
a
your
long list, so please interject.
Oh my god. Okay, Mick mentioned it earlier, but like my favorite win for this year was Sarah Polley's best adapted screenplay for Women Talking. I'd been gunning for that for like weeks, and I was really not sure if it was going to win, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised. I literally texted my sister right away because I had taken her to see the movie like literally the week before. So.
Yeah, I believe if you follow us on Twitter at FilmMajorsPod, you will see a tweet from Oscars Sunday sent a couple seconds after that happened that says "Women Talking, let's go." I think that was maybe all of our favorite win. From that night.
I think so.
I was really pleased to see it win that category.
Yeah.
That and Not To winning Best Original Song.
Yeah, well, it was.
I love that.
Cher in Moonstruck for Best Actress in the Leading Role. I love that movie.
Which
I love
also
Moonstruck so much.
won screenplay, right?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And I think it won Best Supporting Actress as well. Moonstruck's a great movie.
Great film, yeah.
And then
It's Cosmo's Moon.
potentially my favorite of any Oscar win of all time. It's a guy who he's searching. He's a man who's searching.
I know what this is.
He's searching for fulfillment, but in a more real sense, he's searching for Dr. Richard Kimball.
There it
And
is.
that is Tommy Lee Jones
Dr.
as
Richard
Deputy
Kimball.
Sam Gerard in The Fugitive.
That's out of anything you said, that blows my mind that he won, but I get a lot of enjoyment from that.
Yeah, it's an incredible performance.
Yeah. We rewatched that, like a month ago or something like that, and I was just blown away by it. That is such a good film.
Well, yeah, and
Fugitive is such a good movie.
The really cool thing about that performance is that it's the only performance to ever win for someone who wants you to search, do a hard target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, and doghouse in the area.
Or at least it's the only win of someone who will tell you that.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
And to tell you in close to those exact words.
Yeah.
Because, our fugitive's name is Dr. Richard Kimball.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was a cool one. I don't know. Peter Jackson winning for Return of the King. I like that.
Yeah, that was cool. I support that.
Yeah,
I still really like Moonlight winning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not just because it was well deserved, but also because the win was incredibly made for great television.
Yeah, that's true.
That's great.
As a La La Land hater, that was a
Yes.
I
am a La La Land hater, but I didn't
watch it live because I don't watch the Oscars, but I was gratified hearing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Isn't that some poetic justice that the movie that happens to is La La Land?
Yeah.
Oh, God. It's just, the more you learn about it, the sweeter it is.
That's a real La La Land moment. Only in Hollywood, baby.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't need to run through the rest of my list. Those were the big ones I wanted to talk
I have
about.
one that I should
I
bring up for my dad, but go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Alexis.
I was just want to say this was kind of a hard topic because I felt like all of my choices would have been things that I had already chosen for the historic wins that we covered in a previous podcast. I was like, oh, those were kind of like the ones that I kind of cared about. So that's the only reason why I felt like I don't have an answer.
I'm with you. Yeah, that's kind of my exact thing, too.
Fair enough. Okay,
Yeah.
go back and listen to our West Side Story episode.
There
if
you
you
go.
want, if you want to hear some more picks. Edwin, what is
I
our
had
dad's?
one small, or I guess a historic win that is maybe not like at the forefront of everybody's mind, but that my dad would be very excited to hear about. 1973, The Sting. Wins
I
Best
almost
Picture,
mentioned
but
that.
the historic element of that is it was the first movie produced by a woman to win Best Picture. So,
Oh, wow.
the
Hell
producer
yeah,
was
that's great.
Julia Phillips. So
Look at you,
that.
Julia.
Edutainment.
yeah,
Wow.
so that
There you
was.
go.
So there you go, Dad. The Sting.
I didn't
Shout out
know
to the
that.
Sting.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, yeah,
Because I love
Mick
that
and
movie.
I both love The Sting. Yeah,
I
Edwin
grew
and I
up
grew
on
up
it.
watching that movie.
There you go. Yeah.
Really, really great film.
It's really amazing how Paul Newman and Robert Redford seems like equals, like even in age in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and then maybe I think it was like 4 or 5 years later they did this movie, and there's like it seems like there's almost a generational difference between their ages. Really cool, great film.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to maybe get into some other really cool Oscar wins from the year 1992.
Oh yeah,
And I really loved the best picture win, the best director win.
Yeah, those are good.
The best leading actor win.
That was a good one.
The best leading actress win was great.
I loved that.
And the adapted screenplay win, pretty fucking great too.
I'll give it that.
And they all went to Jonathan Demme's The Silence of the Lambs.
Cue
which
the music.
is our big topic film today. It's the one we're doing a deep dive on.
Yeah.
It stars Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster, Scott Glenn, and Ted Levine.
Ted Levine.
And I think that it may be, if not for The Thing, I think it would be my favorite movie that we've ever covered on this podcast.
Yeah,
And
it's amazing.
I think it's maybe indisputably the most culturally influential movie we've ever talked about.
yeah.
Well, there's only 2 other movies that swept all 5 categories like that, and it was 1934's It Happened One Night, and then 1975's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I believe.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So I think that's the only 3 movies that have actually cleared all 5 major categories like that.
That's
Yes, you're
quality
right.
trivia right there. Really quickly, in case you've lived your whole life under a rock, Silence of the Lambs is basically of Jodie Foster starring as Clarice Starling, a top student at the FBI's training academy. Jack Crawford, played by Scott Glenn, wants Clarice to interview Dr. Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins, a brilliant psychiatrist who is also a violent psychopath, serving life behind bars for various acts of murder and cannibalism. Hannibal the Cannibal. Crawford believes that Lecter may have insight into a case and that Starling, as an attractive young woman, may be just the bait to draw him out. I don't know if I like that description.
there's
These
never been a
descriptions
good
are not
Google
great.
description of a movie.
There's a couple, but this
Every
is not-
time we ever read the Google description, it's just like trash.
But yes, this is a very unconventional Best Picture winner. It's an adaptation of kind of like a pulpy horror suspense novel that you might buy at an airport.
I really want to read the book.
Yeah, I've
really do.
honestly been thinking about reading the book too.
Every time I see it, I'm like, this is a book series I think I really like.
But yeah, Silence of the Lambs, I feel like, has had an influence on basically every single crime thriller since it came out, both on television and in the movies. It has had a stated influence on a show that Mick, Yumi, and Edwin all quite enjoy, The X-Files.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Hannibal.
Well, yeah, there were...
Which is also a
There's
great
a
show.
subtle connection. Yeah.
It's a bit of a reach, but yeah, I guess they're connected.
It launched two like movie star careers, one late in an actor's life, and also in a somewhat stickier legacy has kind of become a poster case for transphobia in film.
Which is too bad.
So, yeah, bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into it. Edwin, when did you first see this film?
When did I first see this film? I gotta say I must have only seen it as an adult. Like, I'm assuming you did also, or maybe you saw it as a teenager. But
Late high school,
yeah.
I think.
So me and Zach, as kids, were not really allowed to watch scary movies or horror movies. So now we're normal and don't think about these things at all. No, so we weren't allowed to watch it, but our dad like explained the entire plot of it to us when we were standing in like a Hollywood video store looking at the cover, because it's like a creepy cover. It's very compelling, right, with the moth over the Jodie Foster's mouth. So it was something that like lived in my brain so vividly for years before I saw it. And of course, when you're a kid like that and you hear these details of like, oh my God, there's like this basement and like he takes off someone's face and puts it over his face. Like it's so much worse than the actual movie.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I thought about it for a long time before I saw it, eventually saw it, I want to say as an adult. It was not a letdown. It was different from what I expected. I guess it's, more of a thriller than the like hard like horror movie I was sort of anticipating. But yeah, so that's kind of my background with the movie.
And Alexis, what's your background with Silence of the Lambs?
I definitely had a little bit of a different family. I watched whatever it was that everybody else was watching, no matter what my age was, which meant I was watching a lot of not appropriate things for my age. So I probably saw this when I was like 8 or 9 because my sister was watching. My sister, she's a very big horror fan of the genre. So most of the horror movies that I've seen in my lifetime, I saw watching with my sister growing up. So
I'm assuming this is Natalie, not
Yeah, my sister right. Natalie. And it's actually kind of cute. She's been trying to watch the movies that we've been talking about so that she can listen to the podcast recently. But yeah, so I don't think I had an appreciation for it when I was like 8 or 9. Like, I don't really remember like it having an effect on me in any certain way. Like, I remember being maybe a little creeped out by a couple of the scenes, like the part where like the head is in the jar. I remember like that imagery being very disturbing, but I don't think it wasn't until I was in high school and I think I rewatched it that I was like, oh, this is like a really good movie, you know? So
yeah, that mine's kind of similar to that. Yeah, my parents, it's a bit of both. My parents very much like to censor what I watched, but there were some notable exceptions. John Carpenter's The Thing and Silence of the Lambs is another good example where my parents recognized that, oh no, this is just a really good movie and, you know, we should give Mick a chance with it. So I saw it younger. I don't remember how young I was, but kind of like Alexis, I remember the scene that really bothered me was the introduction to Hannibal, where you go down into it's like the circles of hell when you're going down into the basement of this insane asylum.
Good.
I remember really not liking that as a kid. I didn't like that at all. I'm not even sure if I continued the movie, but no. And then as I got older, I think I visited it in high school, and it's like, wow, this is really good. This is a movie that has grown on me. Every time I see it, it just I gain a new appreciation for it, and here I am now recognizing it as it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, so here's my insano shit from this week. I watched this movie 3 times this week, and it kind of happened by accident. I watched it the first time because I showed it to Sloane, my girlfriend, who had never seen it. Then I watched it again a few nights later to take notes, And then as I was taking notes, I got a text from Mick saying that it was showing at the New Beverly Cinema. And I went to go see it. And I have a little story from my viewing experience at the New Beverly that I'd like to share as sort of a cautionary tale to film bros.
Well, this should be good. You haven't told me this yet.
No, I've been saving it for this.
This is good.
So I was seated behind a guy who was probably in his like early 30s and a woman. They were about a seat apart. And this guy's talking to this woman, and he's like, yeah, you know, I really think that Silence of the Lambs is kind of the only good adaptation of Hannibal Lecter in media. The other adaptations, they just sort of overdo it. And she's like, oh, well, you know, I kind of like the show. And he's like, yeah, I feel like the show like really overdoes it. And initially I was like, oh, this is a date that's going poorly. But as the conversation went on, I was like, oh, no. This man does not know this woman.
He's just volunteering all of this to...
Yeah, and was like talking about how much he knows about the Hannibal Lecter franchise. And eventually I was like, okay, I got to get this fucking lady out of this conversation. I got to help. And I was like, oh, have you seen Manhunter? And he was like, what? And I was like, have you seen Michael Mann's Manhunter? And he was like, no, what is that? And I was like, oh, that's actually the first adaptation of Hannibal Lecter on film. Really great. By the way, I love the show.
His take on the show is dead wrong.
So this is just a little PSA. If you're an obnoxious film bro, keep it the fuck to yourself, or a more obnoxious film bro will show up and embarrass you.
There you go.
It's also funny to be like, oh, the show is too much. Where from what I have not read the books, but from what I understand, there's some extremely like fanfic ass level shit in Thomas Harris's books in terms of Hannibal. He's like, ooh, he has 2 different colored eyes. He has superpowers for how well he can smell people.
Which
like,
he still kind of does in the movie.
Which he does in the movie and he does in the show. Like, I don't know. These are not like realistic works, you know. That's not the point of the series or the stories.
I just
Mads Mikkelsen is Hannibal Lecter though.
So
I would
incredible.
like to say
Hot as hell. Alexis just licked her palm.
I know you can't see it, but I will not let her get. She can't keep getting away with it.
I'm sorry, guys.
Don't apologize.
I don't know. I feel like I'm outwardly like so outspoken about all my different like themes that I like. So sometimes I just try to do it silently.
She just licks her palm. Yeah. I remember when we watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood together for the first time in theaters, and Brad Pitt takes his shirt off. I look over to Alexis, and she just licked her palm. That was the first time I ever
just
saw
so
it.
you all know, I'm not disgusting completely. Like I don't actually lick my palm.
It's a
She's pantomiming. She's an actor.
I'm pantomiming.
She's an actor.
I'm pantomiming their body in front of me.
All right.
Speaking of actors who might play a role where they put their mouths on a body, I'd just like to say that I quite enjoy all of the big screen Hannibal Lecters that I've seen, or all of the actors who have portrayed Hannibal Lecter. I think Brian Cox, Anthony Hopkins, and Mads Mikkelsen all bring something really different to the role.
I haven't seen the Brian Cox movie yet.
Yes, you have. We watched it together. Manhunter.
I have not seen it. I can tell you haven't seen it.
You weren't there?
I wasn't there.
I remember you being there.
Trust me.
Oh, you were asleep on the couch.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, never mind. You were there.
I know what
Was
I
I
watched and
there?
did not.
Yeah, you were there. Yeah. All 3 of us and our roommate were there.
I think maybe I didn't pay attention to that movie.
Yeah, this
I don't
must have
know.
been before I was.
God damn it, guys! Manhunter's a really Edwin's seen Manhunter.
Yeah, I watched it last night.
Hey.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What did you think of?
Yeah,
Sorry,
I mean,
go
it's
ahead.
Michael Mann, right? So I guess he was picturing like, what's the scariest thing he could think about?
Which was?
A manhunter.
Yeah.
Okay,
fuck.
sorry.
God damn it.
Anyway, but it's Michael Mann. It has really great music choices. It's got that really like cool 80s vibe to it, right? Some really beautiful cinematography. I do think some of the acting is not as strong as in, for example, Silence of the Lambs, which is such a powerhouse like set of performers, but I think it has a lot of really strong elements to it. I love there's just some really evocative imagery, right? The tiger, the scene where there's the tranquilized tiger and there's a blind woman petting this tiger is really incredible scene. And I love this comes from the story, but the use of William Blake's paintings throughout Manhunter. William Blake was an artist, an English artist who is known for, I don't know, he had a lot of sort of like religious visions. He was a very unique person, and his art, I think, is a really great fit for the story that Manhunter is trying to tell, because you can see why it speaks to the killer in the film.
The tooth fairy.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Also, I just want to note that has one of my favorite needle drops in any movie at the very end when Will
Yes.
Graham goes in to rescue the woman, and Inagata Davida just fucking kicks in on the soundtrack as he smashes through a window. It's fucking metal as hell.
Who plays Will Graham in that?
I don't remember. The only other thing I've seen him in is another Michael Mann movie, To Live and Die in L.A.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I really want to watch it now. I love Michael Mann. I've often said that his movies, as you watch it, you're like, oh, this is just the coolest director.
Mm-hmm.
They're slick. His movies are slick. And I'd love to, I'm going to have to watch it.
You love a slick flick.
I love a slick flick.
Yeah.
Mix Slick Flicks.
That's going to be the name of the video store he opens up. Please don't run your hands down your body as Alexis says that.
I didn't. I was flicking my nipples.
Oh.
She said
that's
slick,
much
slick,
better.
slick, and I flicked the nick.
But Silence of the Lambs also has kind of a sneaky good soundtrack.
Did you say sneaky
Well,
good
it's
soundtrack?
also got to shout out Howard Shore, regular Cronenberg collaborator.
That's right.
You know,
Hell yeah.
I mean,
And
he's done a lot of
creator
other stuff.
Bella's
but-
love theme.
like the Lord of the Rings, right? Isn't that Howard Shore?
Yes,
Howard
and
Shore.
Twilight.
And Twilight, yeah, again. No, it's so
Seriously.
true. Bella's theme is such a beautiful
God damn it.
song. You know, it is. I'm not trying to be funny. Like that, every time I watch the Twilight movie, I'm like, fuck, this music is like way better than it should be.
This does get into my maybe not that hot take on this movie, which is that
Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah, it could have won more Oscars. I would have given it score. It's such an iconic theme.
Yeah.
What won that year?
I'm not
92.
sure, but I know that
I'll look it up.
it
You guys
also
keep
lost
going.
out to a movie called Prince of Tides, which I can't speak to because I haven't seen, but it lost out to Prince of Tides for cinematography, and this is such a gorgeous movie. Like there's so many iconic shots.
I really just want to know like what lens that they were using for like all of the close-ups, because
Same.
people just look beautiful. Like all of the close-ups they look so good. And so I'm like, what did they use? Like a 75 or an 80 millimeter or something to make them look like that nice? I don't know.
It's a very shallow depth of field, though. That's something I noted.
Well, I'd like to get into this because it's kind of Jonathan Demme, the director's signature shot, which is the Demme close-up.
Yeah.
And it's one close-up of an actor staring dead down the barrel of the lens, which is super unusual, very hard to pull off in a performance.
Yeah.
Because it's unnatural to look straight at the camera and not at your scene partner. And then the reverse shot will be a shot of the other actor staring slightly off
and there's a
the center of
formula.
the camera.
There's a formula to this one.
Yeah, and in this film, it's almost always the character other than Clarice staring dead down the barrel of the lens, and Clarice staring slightly off. And what it does is it really centers you in Clarice's perspective.
Yeah.
And I think it's why so many people have said Jonathan Demme is such an empathetic filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like he really just understands and loves his characters and wants to lock you in their perspective.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was picking up on that when I watched it yesterday. And yeah, you do get some camera movements which are very clearly from Clarice's POV. Like when you're down meeting the really criminally insane, the camera moves around.
Yeah, right before
and
you
then
meet Lecter.
Hannibal's there already looking at her right down the barrel of the lens. The time that formula is an exception, where in other words, the one time that Clarice Starling, Jodie Foster, actually looks down the barrel of the lens like everyone else, is the scene later on.
It's after Lecter's escape.
It's after Lecter's escape, and she's sitting on the bed with her other female officer,
Adelia, her friend who's also a trainee at the FBI.
Yeah, Cassie Lemons, right?
Yeah, she's looking down the barrel of the lens, and then it cuts back to the reverse, and Jodie Foster is looking down the barrel of the lens. It's the few times that actually happens, which makes me think, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's very much trying to capture the feminine perspective with the camera, especially when right before the autopsy, she walks in and then he says some sort of remark about, oh, this is a very sensitive, Jack Crawford says a sensitive subject. They walk out of the room, leaving Jodie Foster in the middle of all of these rural cops. And it's just the camera pans around to them just looking at her. So much of this film are male characters it's voyeurism, just looking at Clarice, either like they're hungry because they want to fuck her, or they don't trust her and they want to destroy her because they feel threatened by her. And the whole fucking movie, she's on trial. She's being tested every step of the way. And I think just how they shoot that is what you're bringing up, helps sell that idea even further.
Yeah, and I'd like to get into something. So Mick owns the Criterion copy of this movie, which has a little pamphlet that includes an interview with Jonathan Demme from right around when Silence of the Lambs came out. And it's interesting because Demme, like, I don't see any reason why he would have any sort of special insight into the feminine perspective. But what everyone who knew Jonathan Demme has said is that he was just like a uniquely very empathetic guy from when he was young. And in this interview, he brings up like, yeah, well, I felt like Clarice is an underdog, and I've always been interested in underdogs and been very empathetic towards that. And I think that cared empathy for people who are maybe marginalized comes through in the way he communicates Clarice's story.
I would also say that Clarice is like one of her defining character traits is a high degree of empathy.
Yes.
Like she empathizes with the victims in a way that nobody else does. She notices details about them that bring through their personality even after they've been so dehumanized in death. Things like, noticing the glitter nail polish and in the first victim's room, going through and really sort of seeing all the details of this person's life that are left behind in a way that the other, her colleagues like don't engage with at all. So I wonder if maybe some of it is, like that's a level at which Jonathan Demme maybe relates to this character. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's why it's called Silence of the Lambs, because she had to save that lamb. She was so driven by empathy. That's what set this whole thing off and why she wants to, get that crying to stop. So she has to save everybody.
Yeah. And this really is a movie that deals with empathy in a lot of different ways, because you have
sometimes more successfully than in others, but
yes. But you have Lecter, who has, no empathy for human beings.
Right.
And then you have Bill, who is someone who's intentionally trying to suppress their empathy.
But does definitely have it.
Yeah, because like
with their dog.
It's really great how you have the first scene with Senator Martin on the TV saying Catherine's name over and over again. And Clarice is like, that's smart. It's going to make it harder for him to cut her up. And then you cut to the infamous it rubs the lotion on its skin scene. And you can see Bill getting more and more upset as Catherine's pleading and asking for her mother. Yeah. And, the delivery of like, put the fucking lotion in the basket is like, that is preceded by Bill, like, not being able to look at Catherine.
He's trying to drown her out.
Yes.
As opposed to drowning it out. That was the moment he became human for him.
Yeah. So what I'd like to get into now, if everybody's okay with it, Edwin,
well, let's find out.
You mentioned how this movie deals with empathy in some ways more successfully
I want to unpack
than
this.
others. Now, I would like to note that Edwin has several different expertises that he's bringing to this episode. One is Edwin has done a lot of academic writing in his free time about transness and horror.
I would say it's not academic. It's just, a hobby, an interest.
Yes.
But sorry.
Yes, and Edwin is also studies bugs. Yeah, so we've got a trans man who writes about horror and studies bugs,
Which it is perfect.
kind of a lot of
Perfect for
different
this episode.
angles.
I will say I liked when we were talking about you were saying that Buffalo Bill shows empathy toward the dog, but also I like the scene when the entomologists are like, wow, they're looking at the death's head moth and they're like, someone really loved him. And
That's
like,
right.
so
That's a great
true
example.
because I rear bugs for my job. It's I work in a
great.
lab and I rear bugs, and I sometimes refer to them as my children. I spend a lot of time feeding them. So I get it. Like
Buffalo Bill,
yeah.
I see you.
I see you, and I also see those the weird bug guys in the museum because I'm like,
Yeah.
they're very funny. I like those guys.
Are you hitting on me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, every time
Shoot
I watch
your shot,
Silence,
I guess.
every time I watch Silence of the Lambs, I'm like, hey, it's Edwin.
Yeah,
Okay, side note, the thing that I like the most about the science guys is they're weird in the way that I can appreciate people being weird, not in
Yes.
the normal way that men are fucking creeps, you know?
Right.
When she's like, are you hitting on me? He's like, yeah, like 100%. Like,
Yeah, matter of fact.
I'm laying it all out.
I know. And then immediately, like, as soon as he says, yeah, the other guy finds something. He's like, what you got? Like, immediately turns his focus to his other love in life, which is bugs.
yeah.
Yeah.
One detail I thought I would bring in that kind of I feel like fits into both of these pieces around both the entomology and trans issues in the movie are death's head moths. So the moth that they find, the pupa case they find in the murder victim's throat. They're a type of sphinx moth, so they feed on. They're an agricultural pest, but they also steal honey from beehives. Is one of their interesting traits that these moths have, and they do this by disguising themselves. I don't know this much about the mechanism. I was just looking a little bit previous to this episode, but I assume, use some kind of hormonal mechanism or pheromonal mechanism to infiltrate the beehive so the bees don't attack them. So I think that there's this theme. I mean, there's the obvious kind of like surface level theme around metamorphosis that the movie draws a lot of attention to, but I think it has this other kind of fitting into the sort of problematic idea around trans people as being deceptive just based on the specific moth that they chose, which I think they just chose it because of the skull. It looks spooky or whatever. But
Right.
The specific behavior of this insect as an insect that can kind of enter this space by disguising itself, I think kind of draws out some of the problematic elements of this movie in a way.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Wait.
Alexis?
Can I, that also kind of applies to Clarice, though, because she is like, she's disguising, covering up her West Virginia like accent. She has this nice, detective's bag, but then she has really cheap shoes that, Hannibal like comments on, where it's
what
you're
like with your nice bag and your cheap shoes? You look like a rube.
Yeah, but it's like, but she's clearly doing this so that she can disguise herself in this like, male dominated like world, So, I mean, who knows? Maybe there was a little bit of extra thought behind that too.
Yeah, maybe. And I think when you go back to the book, there's a line, I believe at the end of the book that is not in the movie, where after Clarice shoots Jamie Gum, who's also called Buffalo Bill in the movie. As Jamie is dying, I believe she says, what does it feel like to be so beautiful? Which is a really sad line. Like, that's a really tragic line. And it's interesting to me that the movie didn't include it and really doesn't, like, Buffalo Bill is so isolated within the film. The interplay and the connection is mostly between Clarice and Hannibal. But in the source material, there is maybe this more of a connection that's drawn explicitly between Clarice and Jamie that I think is kind of erased in the movie as it was made.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the movie's definitely more interested in the dynamic between Clarice and Hannibal.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to get your perspective on, Edwin, is something that we've talked about a little bit before, which is something that both this movie and Psycho, which is kind of the other really famous horror film that has, had an impact on like cultural notions of trans people and trans women, is both of those movies kind of try to lampshade or distance their queer coded villains from being directly trans. The psychologist at the end of Psycho says Norman Bates is not I believe they call him a transvestite. And then then Hannibal Lecter, when Clarice and Hannibal are talking about Bill, goes, Bill's not a real transsexual. He only thinks he is.
Right.
Yes.
And you took issue with this.
Yeah,
You had some historical context for it.
I'm glad you brought that up because I'm here as a viewer and I watch that and I go, okay, so this movie is stating that Buffalo Bill isn't trans. Like, especially when Jodie Foster says that that's a fallacy. There is no correlation between transness and violence. You know, they're passive people, as she describes it. So, Edwin, I want to hear your take on this.
Okay. So, man, there's a lot to unpack there, I guess. And I do think a lot of viewers take that set of lines at face value, essentially,
right.
Which,
and I would include myself in that too,
and I also think it's worth, again, when we talk about historical context, we are looking at 1991, and at the time, I don't know how much you guys know about the protests around Silence of the Lambs at the Oscars.
A little bit.
Yeah. So gay rights organizations protested this movie. I think 10 people were arrested the night of the Oscars at a protest. GLAAD denounced Silence of the Lambs. But interestingly, at the time, the issue that a lot of those organizations took with it was that they saw Buffalo Bill as a homophobic stereotype. So there was GLAAD's, I believe their statement was, the killer in the movie is a walking, talking gay stereotype. He has a poodle named Precious. He sews, he wears nipple rings. He has an affected feminine voice, and he cross-dresses. He completely promotes homophobia. So it was very much framed in the context of concern about homophobic stereotyping. And Jonathan Demme went on to try to do damage control on this. He expressed regret for not sufficiently expressing that Jamie Gum isn't gay, and that was the term, the word that he used. They weren't particularly concerned or maybe aware of Jamie Gum being trans, and Demme's he had a statement that what was it? The idea is that by turning himself into a female, then surely Gum can feel like he has escaped himself. He's not a traditional cross-dresser, transvestite, or drag queen, which at the time would have been kind of the known terminology. The various labels that respectfully come up for people who love to don the clothing of the opposite gender. So Gum is not gay, but there is a reference to a homosexual experience, etc. So this was addressed at the time. But I think that the specific way that this was disavowed is part of the sort of, I would say, establishment liberal transphobia that is epitomized by this movie. Because the idea that someone can wrongly think that they are trans when they express that they're trans, but that a psychologist or a series of psychologists or doctors can tell them that they are wrong about their own identity because they are too damaged or too unstable in some way is the kind of medical gatekeeping that real trans people experience, and is a part of how transphobia continues to express itself to this day, right? Because I think we have in this movie both the reaction that it provoked in a lot of people who saw it, which was more of a visceral kind of gut level reactionary disgust at the idea of a trans person. But I don't know that was what the movie intended to produce. I mean, it did have that impact, so it kind of doesn't matter entirely what the intention was. But I think I don't think that is what Jonathan Demme set out to create. He did, but in the text itself, the type of transphobia that comes through is more that kind that comes through from Clarice, who is a character we are supposed to empathize with and listen to and trust, right? And yes, she says, transsexuals are very passive or whatever, right? Which is very extremely patronizing. Hey
man, don't fucking tell me.
And then Hannibal Lecter, who were also he's not someone we're totally supposed to buy into his viewpoint. But, gotta say, among the many crimes of Hannibal Lecter, medical gatekeeping, definitely one of them.
It's one of them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's my take on that. My take is, that kind of disavowal, doesn't really hold water. I do think that,
because it's just another example of someone else denying someone's identity for them when they're in no position to do so.
Yeah, that the movie supports.
That makes sense.
And the person whose denial we're supposed to kind of take at face value. One of them is a psychiatrist who is also
a cannibal,
a serial killing cannibal
who lies throughout the entire movie. Also,
okay. So if we can pivot now, because I'm glad what you just said, Edwin, like lies throughout the entire movie, which is true. So I want to talk about Clarice and Hannibal's dynamic here, and I feel like I haven't read the books. I feel like the movie suggests that there's perhaps a quote unquote romantic connection there, or some sort of connection, especially when she grabs the files or something like that, and he
strokes her finger,
like with a pinky or just something like that. There's some suggestions to it.
Also when she shows up in that scene, he goes, "People will say we're in love."
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's pretty explicit. I, for one, don't buy it for a fucking second, because there's nothing in this movie where you really feel like you can trust this guy. To me, Clarice is just another fascinating patient for him. A plaything, because he is so narcissistic. That's why I don't trust this connection between them. I think he gives her more of he doesn't close down and turn to stone, as Jack Crawford says so much with Clarice, because I think he can manipulate her, and I think he enjoys that.
I think an aspect of that is definitely the fact that she is dependent on him for information and for like understanding like Buffalo Bill and, I guess the inner machinations of his mind, supposedly, even though, he's not a trustworthy character. So like, you're right, Edwin, why should we trust him and what he says? Right. But I think that it's an element of his narcissism that he is willing to not go after Clarice and continues to have an interest in her. And that is because she's in many ways, like you said, like a plaything, something submissive, and interesting to him in that way.
The other thing with that scene where their fingers touch that I assume is maybe an intentional reference to is Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam, the painting, where you have God on the cloud and they just make that almost connection. And Italy, Italian art, and the idea of being God or playing God are big themes throughout a lot of the adaptations of Thomas Harris's work. So I think there's different ways of interpreting that connection.
Yeah. I think also like there's whatever, because I mean the misogyny is like all over this fucking movie, right? But then you have Hannibal who believes himself to be above it because he's so he's kind of upset by the fact that Miggs would like throw his semen onto her as she moves from his cell the first time that they meet, and so he ends up facilitating Miggs's death, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's just like another element of that like narcissism where it's like he believes himself to be above all of these other men that are in her life, pointing out the fact of your supervisor doesn't. Do you think he wants to fuck you? He's pointing all these scenes out, but he's very much like meaning it like I'm so much more interested in you for you in this weird way, but in many ways, it's as exploitative as all the other men, And
I think there's to eat her feelings.
There's a great scene where she kind of calls him on that too, right? Where he's asking some gross question or whatever of like, "Oh, did your uncle like molest you or something?" Yeah. And she's like, "Yeah, that sounds like the kind of question Miggs would ask." It's like,
frankly,
get his ass.
Frankly, that's the kind of thing Miggs would say. Also, not anymore.
So yesterday, speaking of misogyny, on a rewatch, there was a scene that I've never actually quite connected with before until this last viewing, which now I really like. So after the autopsy of the woman's body washed up,
Yes,
And they found the pupa.
first, is that the first victim, or is that...
Is,
It's
I believe,
the first victim. She was found third.
Third. Jack Crawford.
Or
And,
no, sorry, I think it's the fourth girl. Sorry. Anyways.
So
one of
Clarice and
them.
Jack Crawford are driving away, right? And this is after he pulled that stunt, which is, oh, this is a touchy matter. I got it out of here. And so the scene starts with Jack Crawford saying, when I called the sheriff away because you're a woman, that really burned you, didn't it? It's just a smokescreen, Starling. I had to get rid of him. Like, hey, I want to comment on what I did. I'm aware of it. Just so you know, it's not what I'm really like. I'm actually just doing us the favor by doing that. And her response is perfect. She says, "It matters, sir. Cops look at you to know how to act. It matters." Like, okay, bitch, sure, it's smokescreen or whatever, but you are perpetuating more bullshit that I have to deal with. So it doesn't really matter if you think you're doing yourself or me a favor, because really you're not. You're continuing to perpetuate this. And I've never quite connected with that scene, but I paused it, rewound it just so I could get the quote right. Because I just love that. It's like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But it's a great, and also, and he responds, point taken, kind of smugly, and then just kind of nestles in to go to sleep. I love how she just so confidently gave him a retort.
Yeah.
To her own supervisor.
I think by that point, she's well aware of the fact that even though he's given her this opportunity to move forward in her training and to be important in the investigation in the way of interacting with Hannibal Lecter, he's in the very first meeting between her and Crawford that we see, he makes sure to bring up the essay that she did for him, and he says, "Oh, I gave you an A," and she says A-. And that's a method of manipulation to bring up something to flatter her, to make sure that she's kind of she's receptive to what it is that he's going to ask her to do, essentially, because he is using her as some yes, she is a trainee FBI agent, but he's still using her to get to Hannibal Lecter. And he's not really telling her what the real purpose of it is.
Yeah, he's sending her in because she's a pretty woman, exactly his taste.
Jack Crawford uses people throughout this whole film, which is why I personally don't like him as a character.
I like this portrayal of Jack Crawford. I'm not sure if you're supposed to totally like him. I think.
Yeah, so one thing that's kind of funny about that is I'm gonna forget his name. The guy who wrote the Mindhunter book,
Oh yeah,
you know him,
Jack
the Mindhunter
Douglas
book?
or John Douglas or
John
something?
Douglas. Yeah. So
That's
he
what the
wrote
show's
the book
adapted
that
from.
Mindhunter's based on. He was kind of the guy who pioneered a lot of
He was the Mindhunter.
Yeah,
right?
the behavioral science unit stuff, which also, side note, is worth noting, profiling is a pseudoscience. All this, sort of stuff in this movie, right, is, it kind of works better as, a fairy tale almost than, a real sort of idea of psychological insight into any of these types of criminals or whatever.
So good.
Right. But what I was going to say was, he is part of the inspiration for the character of Jack Crawford, and apparently he really liked how he was portrayed in this movie. So I'm like, did we watch the same movie? Because that guy's
right. I know. I'm like, that's such an asshole. He uses people.
Oh my god.
Wait. So wow, that's interesting.
Mick, I'm glad you brought up that scene in the car, because I feel like it's one of the few scenes in this movie that isn't instantly iconic. Because I feel like people have a mental image of almost every single scene in this movie.
Yes. Well, I was telling you, Zach, that this last rewatch, every scene, and I mean every scene that starts, I go, oh, fuck, this is a good scene. And the more that keeps happening, the more I realize, oh, yeah, this is just a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's something that you keep telling yourself throughout the film is, oh, fuck, this is great too. But that scene, for me, it's just always fallen through the cracks. But I gleaned so much appreciation from it because it's just so short. But anyways,
The little bit of dialogue that I don't hear quoted, and I had kind of forgotten was an exchange, but I think is so fucking great and so fucking effective, is when Hannibal gets brought out to talk to Senator Martin, and he's in the mask, and just, he has to get a little dig in on her, and he goes, "Excuse me, did you nurse your daughter? Did you breastfeed her?" "Yeah, yes. amputate a man's leg and you can still feel it tickling. Tell me, ma'am, when your little girl is on the slab, where will it tickle you? And then she just goes, get this thing back to Baltimore. It's such a fucking good exchange. It's
You're
so
gonna leave
fucked
off
up.
His little, what is it? Love the suit.
Love your suit.
He's so
Nice suit.
He's so catty. He is like kind of, I don't know, like Hannibal's obviously also kind of a queer coded character. There's a lot of queer coded characters in this movie because I mean Jodie Foster IRL is a lesbian, of course. But I think Clarice, it's ambiguous, but I think she's kind of a lesbian coded character as well, or a lot of lesbians connect to that character.
Yeah, I think it's a little funny note about Jodie Foster as a lesbian is she gave some speech at the Golden Globes a few years back where people were like, oh, this is Jodie Foster like finally coming out because she had never like formally said anything and then she got interviewed about it.
This was also part of the GLAAD protests. It was kind of shitty actually. Some of the gay press sort of was calling her out for being closeted and being in this movie that caught a lot of flack for being homophobic, but it's a complicated situation, right? But anyway, sorry, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny because she got asked like, oh, did you just come out in that speech? And she was like, no, everybody knows I'm gay. What are you talking about?
Which is the correct answer to have.
This was not a coming out speech. I'm a lesbian. Everyone knows this.
Yeah, no, I hate to do it because he's Hannibal the Cannibal, but
he's kind of sexy.
He's
oh boy,
yeah. But I think he's
thing.
Supposed to be right. He's like the fucking Phantom of the Opera or something, and
he is. I don't know what it is. I don't know I don't know if I'm problematic, but I mentioned this to Zach. I'm like, fuck. Like, okay, I know he's a horrible guy, but there's something about him where the scene where she's in the dark and he's in the dark, the lights come up and all of his illustrations have been taken away from him. And then there's the TV, which fuckface is using as torture. Chilton. Fuck Chilton. That's the real baddie in this movie, as far as I'm concerned. Fuck Chilton.
He's so good though as like character.
Oh, he's great.
Oh my god,
he's like, you just immediately are like, oh fuck this guy.
Yeah, well, literally one of the first things she says is like, a lot of detectives have come through here, but I can't say I've remembered one as attractive as you are.
It's so gross. So horrible.
This can be quite a fun town if you have the right guide.
You point
it's
out
like also it's Baltimore unless your guide is John Waters. Like how fun is it going to be?
But like when the lights come up and reveals that his drawings have been taken away from him and he's basically being tortured by television, I genuinely feel for the guy.
And by a televangelist as well. Again, I think
I wouldn't want to wish that torture on anyone.
Yeah. I don't know. He's a sophisticated. He listens to great operatic classical music. I don't know. I also am subscribed to Bon Appetit magazine. Oh my god, Hannibal Lecter, I see you, and I'm not saying I support you, but I don't know. He's oddly
such a
charming.
fun little Easter egg, though. The little Bon Appetit right before he's about to Bon Appetit that little nosy,
Yeah. Well said, Alexis. Oh my God, that is such a great shot though in the cell after he's killed the cops. And the camera's pulling up and there's blood and you see the record spinning and you just see him just waving his hand. And it really does feel like narcissism has fully taken over in him again. And he is ascending to his own heaven.
He's
in that
God
point.
Now.
Usually when the camera is the God's eye view, it makes your character seem small. But for some reason, that is not the effect here.
I mean, I think
it makes him look so powerful.
It's helped by the cop on the ground. Like, it gives you a sense of perspective and scale.
Yes, I would say. Yeah. That's true.
It sells the effect that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's just so... okay, that's another thing. We talk about favorite scenes and sequences. I think that when he escapes the cell and all of the cops down below look at the elevator ticker going up or down, going down, and they realize, oh shit, I'm getting chills just now talking about it. That sequence from the beginning of that to the ambulance where the reveal happens, I honestly think might be one of the best sequences ever made.
It's so movie. Effective.
It's so intense, and every time I watch it, I know what's going to happen. But I somehow, the part of my brain forgets Like it's one of those scenes that every time I see it, it almost feels like I'm watching it for the first time. I don't know. It's just so good. The sound design, the editing, the acting, that cop that has perhaps one of the best mustaches ever put to film. It's fantastic. I love it.
What is it with you and mustaches? Like, so strange. So
I appreciate a good mustache.
Fixate.
I do fixate on the stash.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now
Stop looking at me like that.
So can I give another shout out? During the autopsy, it contains one of my favorite sound effects of any movie ever with the
chrysalis coming out of the throat.
No, with the camera. Every time he takes a picture, you get that ka-chunk, and then the whirring sound. I think that honestly has influenced a lot of horror films after Silence of the Lambs, because you would hear it in movie trailers for horror films, that whirring sound of the camera. I don't know what it is, but it puts me on edge, and I almost always expect a jump scare, even though I know it's not going to come. But that autopsy scene always just really freaks me out, and it's because of the sound of that camera. There's just so many little details I'd love to shout out, but I wanted to do that one.
All the things that I was like reading about Silence of the Lambs, they all kind of like commented on the diegetic versus non-diegetic sound. So diegetic, which, you know, we went to film school, so we remember that is specifically the sounds that are like in the movie that would be real in the world, like the sounds of the camera. And then the non-diegetic sounds would be like the score and shit like that.
Right. And if we hear it, then the characters are hearing it because it's diegetic.
Yeah. So like that and dude, his fucking like the thing that he says after the fava beans and the nice Chianti, and he does that, and I was just like, it just gives me this deep seated like shiver to hear him do that.
That was improvised. He just decided to do that in a take, and Demme's like, "That's going in the cut."
And if you make that noise, people will immediately be like, "Oh, Silence of the Lambs."
Yeah, that's it. It's absolutely
you don't even have
iconic.
to say the line.
Yeah, you just do that. Speaking of Anthony Hopkins, who I've said before is one of the best shouters of any actor. When you hear him yelling, he just has such a good yelling voice. But aside from that, he just has such amazing vocal control in this film. Every line he delivers is pitch perfect.
Okay, yes, thank you. I want to talk about the voice. I want to talk about his Hannibal Lecter voice because, for the love of God, I want to have a Hannibal Lecter impression, and mine is not very good. And it pisses me off, and it's a hard voice to do.
It is.
And I got deep into trying to figure out how to do the Hannibal Lecter voice this week. And what I found was that Hopkins has said that his Hannibal Lecter voice is a 1/3 Truman Capote, 1/3 Katharine Hepburn, and 1/3 HAL 9000.
Oh my God, that is...
What's HAL 9000?
From 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, the computer.
I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave.
Yeah, so like, I don't know, I've been trying to go like, Katharine Hepburn, HAL 9000. Katharine Hepburn, 9000. Hello, Clarice.
Okay, all right.
And it's like...
that wasn't Zach. That was an actual clip that we got of Anthony Hopkins practicing his voice in his dressing room.
Yeah, because you can't do the Truman Capote. You got the other two.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the missing secret sauce, and that's such a fucking hard voice. You have to be Philip Seymour Hoffman to do it right.
I love that
Another
description.
cool Oscar win, also.
That is a cool Oscar win.
Yeah.
Capote, good movie.
Yeah. Another kind of, I don't know, speaking of sort of diegetic moments, I think the use of American Girl, the Tom Petty song in this movie as a way to introduce the character of Catherine Martin, who is one of the pieces of this movie who's grown on me so much over time, the senator's daughter. She's so wonderful.
Brooke Smith.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I was going to forget the actress's name, but I love that scene where she's introduced singing by herself in the car, because you're immediately like so drawn to this character. Like, she seems fun and down to earth, and love her in this movie.
She's so fucking great, and like should have had a bigger career. Like, the last thing that I know she's in is she has like a bit part in the very end of Interstellar. And I think that like she is like one of the great, I just started reading Men, Women, and Chainsaws, so I don't want to misappropriate the term, because I know this isn't totally accurate, but she is one of the great final girls of the horror genre. She's so good.
Edwin, did you get that book for Zach?
Did I?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, I
It was
couldn't
a Christmas
remember.
present.
Yeah,
Okay, 'cause,
I've definitely read sections of it. So
Yeah.
I really want to read it after you're done.
Yeah.
That sounds like a fantastic book.
Yeah, I've got to get it read before our next Spooktober.
Yeah.
yeah, another small standout in this movie. Do you all know the dog trivia?
No, please refresh
Okay.
me because I told Zach something. Like, I know this dog's famous.
So,
I forgot why.
Well, a little bit. So the dog's name was Darla, R.I.P. Darla.
Right.
Credited in this movie.
Credited in this movie. Yeah, she's a Bichon Frise. And would you like to guess the other movie that she was in? If Zach knows this, don't say it.
This pisses me off because
No, I forgot, and
The
Nick
next
told
year,
me yesterday.
it was a 1992 movie that had a little white dog in it.
Little white
here's the thing.
dog.
I know this. I just can't remember what fucking picture it is.
God
It's,
damn it.
as
It's
soon as
not
you say
legally
it.
Can you get-
blonde.
No.
Yeah, hint. Is there a
No,
hint?
that's a chihuahua.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, can we get a hint?
Is there a hint?
It's a movie that I don't know. Zach would probably like to cover on the podcast. I don't know if that's a good enough hint.
It's a horror movie?
Not really, but it's one that you like to do voices from.
Oh, fuck, that's so many movies. Is it Mrs.
Is it
Doubtfire?
a
It
Tarantino
is
movie?
Batman Returns.
Oh,
The
that's right.
circus
yes.
lady with the quote unquote
That's
poodle. It's not a
right.
poodle. It's Darla.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you, Edward. I was trying to remember what the fuck movie that was from. So yeah, Darla's a fucking celebrity.
I am not a human being. I am an animal.
See what
Hold
I
the ball
tell
with
you.
it.
What did I tell you?
Oh my god.
Crank the AC.
This is why we'll never cover this film.
Buddy, based on your central conceit for December, we have a real good shot at covering this film, I'm afraid to say.
Why? Because that's...
We'll
Cursed
talk about it
Christmas?
off mic.
Yeah, but...
Oh, okay, we'll talk about it on mic. Cursed Christmas.
How is that Cursed Christmas?
It's a very cursed vibe in that movie.
I don't know. I don't know if it's cursed.
Well, okay, we'll get into the semantics of Cursed Christmas later.
All right. I am excited for Cursed Christmas.
So, all right, do we have anything else on Silence of the Lambs? Anything anybody else wants to bring up that's pressing?
The only thing that I just really appreciate the fact that like the real reveal of like it comes from two women speaking to each other, which is the first time that you really have two women speaking to each other in this entire movie. And it's when they're kind of discussing like what is the thing that you covet the most, you know, and it's, you know, the thing that you see every day.
how
And
do we
like
learn to
they're the
covet?
ones that are discussing. Yeah, they're the ones that are discussing it. It's the first time in the whole movie that you really have like two women like actually like having a conversation between each other. It's usually just Clarice. Literally the whole movie is just her surrounded by men. And then like when she's around all those police officers, it's like very clear like how small she is in comparison to them. You know, she just looks swamped by them. So I don't know. I liked a lot of the blocking, and I guess maybe the choices that they made in making a lot of the background actors, even that are around Clarice, be mainly only men. So it's like she very much is kind of alone in this, very isolated in this world. Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah, I think it's too bad they don't really give Cassie Lemons. I think that's her name. I don't remember if it's Lemons or Lemon, but Cassie Lemon, her friend in the FBI.
Delia.
Yeah, they give her basically
Do
nothing
they
to
ever
do.
say her name?
They do very briefly, but she is also an interesting kind of like horror figure. She was in Candyman as well. And she wrote and directed, oh my God, am I going to forget what this movie is called right now? Eve's Bayou. It's a Southern Gothic movie. It's kind of she's a black woman. It's a movie about a sort of black family in the South who are dealing with kind of like curses and witchcraft and stuff. It's really, really good. So yeah, just wanted to like bring her up. She was also in Vampire's Kiss, a movie that I love. So good. But yeah, she doesn't really get much to do in this movie, but she is an interesting like creator, so I think it's worth like bringing her up. I don't know.
Fuck yeah.
And I want to give a quick shout out to Tak Fujimoto, who is the cinematographer of this film. He did such a fantastic job. We've already mentioned it.
Should have won an Oscar.
I wanted to say his name. And then also we glossed over it really quickly. This movie lost Best Original Score in 1992 to Beauty and the Beast.
I'm still giving it to Silence of the Lambs. I'm still giving it to Silence of the Lambs.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Lost to Alan Menken.
All right.
I love Alan Menken. That's
Yeah.
my man.
I'm kind of torn on that, honestly. I can see why Beauty and the Beast won, but I can also I can give accolades to this one as well.
Well, I feel like that's a good place to leave off.
Yeah.
Edwin, thank you so much for coming
Edwin, thank
on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for providing your
Bless.
expertise.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you'd like to plug?
I mean, not my own work necessarily, but I definitely think there are the 30th anniversary of Silence of the Lambs was in 2021. So there were a bunch of retrospectives that came out right around then that kind of tackle some of the difficult context and like legacy of this movie. I really think it is worth bringing up, right? That this, as good as the movie is, it's almost to its own detriment because it has become such a touchstone that has been used to hurt a lot of people. Like there are so many of these accounts that came out around the retrospective of trans women writing about this movie and talking about how they personally have had people like throw lines at this movie from this movie at them to denigrate them. So this is something that really informs a lot of people's experiences of bigotry. And for a lot of people, it's like the first depiction of a trans person they ever saw in their life, which for a young trans person, especially if they were growing up in like the 90s, which was a really, really horrible time to be growing up as a queer person. It's tough now, it's not a competition, but there was, 1991, very difficult time to be a queer person in America. So having that be kind of like what you see growing up as like the only option for like who you're going to be or how other people are going to see you is really unfortunate. So I think, the documentary Disclosure talks a little bit about Silence of the Lambs. It's on Netflix. There's more in-depth pieces that you can seek out. Maybe I'll send some of them to Zach and he can link them in the show notes or something like that. But there's, I'm not a trans woman, so it doesn't hit like quite as personally for me. So it is something that I think, it's important to listen to people who are the most directly affected by this, because again, as much as this is a great movie and a lot of people love this movie, there's people who can't love this movie because just because of the world we live in. So. Yeah.
And if you'd like to listen to a podcast episode with a trans critic who has a good perspective on this, check out the Blank Check episode with Emily Vanderwerf.
Horror Queers also has a good one on it.
So that's our discussion of Silence of the Lambs.
This was a great episode. Edwin, thank you so much.
Yeah, I had a great time.
I love this.
Next week, we are going to be talking about one of Alexis and I's films that we have in common.
Yeah.
It's a 2015 Best Picture winner, and it's called Spotlight, directed by Tom McCarthy and starring Michael Keaton, Rachel McAdams, and Mark Ruffalo. If you'd like to find that movie, it's on HBO Max. And if you would like to find us on social media, you can find us at FilmMajorsPod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you want to shoot us an email, please shoot us an email. We'd like an email.
Please do.
You can email us at filmmagerspod@gmail.com. Particularly if you're a trans listener and you have a perspective on Silence of the Lambs that you'd like to share, we would love to hear from you. Because it's been a very impactful movie and not in great ways in many cases.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
But this was great. It was great seeing everyone. This was a really fun time. Fantastic discussion. My goodness.
Alrighty.
All right, everybody.
Later,
we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.